Well, welcome back, everybody, and today we're going to finish up Chapter 5, and we're going to look at two very important, in fact, the most important elements in motivating people in your leadership style, and that's fear and love. Now, you may not think these two belong in a leadership and management course, but I can tell you, both have profound influences in the workplace. I've seen people who have led using both tactics, fear and love, and I can tell you that both of them have their consequences. So today, let's take a look at fear, love, and let's also take a look at the realm of emotions. Emotions is a construct, and we're going to discuss that during the course, but emotions are the things that people bring that are unique. They can influence how they perform. It is the feeling and the display of what's going on inside them and so forth that can make or break a leader. And you need to be in tune with emotions, not only yourself, but with the people who you are giving leadership over. So today, let's take a look at fear, love, and emotions.
Welcome to Minute with Maxwell. My name is John. I was recently speaking to a group of leaders, and I said, when you stop loving your people, you should stop leading your people. So let's talk about what does it mean to lead with love. When a leader leads with love, the first thing that is very apparent is that it's not about the leader. The whatever he or she is doing, it's not about who they are and what they command from others. It's always about others. I love the expression that it's wonderful when the people believe in the leader, but it's even more wonderful when the leader believes in the people. Well, that's what leading with love and belief is all about. Just loving and believing in the people. I think that leadership is a very difficult job. I think it's a very heavy responsibility, and I just have a feeling that for most of us, we get tired of it. But the thing that keeps us going is that we love our people. The moment that I stop loving you as a leader is the day I start manipulating you as a leader, and that's always wrong. So I would just suggest you today to kind of check your love thermometer, get your love gauge out, and ask yourself, do I still love the people I lead? If the answer is yes, keep leading. If the answer is no, quit. Because I've never known an effective good leader who had great leadership skills but did not love his or her people that was effective in leading them. Thanks for joining me today on Minute with Maxwell.
Welcome back, everybody, and today we're going to finish up Chapter 5 by looking at emotions. Now, you saw that little clip from John Maxwell, which talks about love and leadership, and one of the things that I think was more important than anything else is just the statement that if you don't love your people, get out of leadership. If you don't have any feelings or if you don't have any regard anymore for them, and you can grow into that, then it's best to just go ahead and cut ties with them, because it's going to show eventually in the way that you act, your disposition, your attitude, and your motivation. So today we're going to take a look at love, we're going to take a look at emotions, and how those play into the leadership mix. Now, what's emotional intelligence? That's a term that's come about fairly recently, and it's something that companies are looking for today, especially in leaders. And it's a person's ability to perceive, identify, understand, successfully manage emotions in self and others. It's just having that perception and sensitivity to how other people are feeling and have a regard for them. It used to, as I've said before, not be a big deal. We really didn't pay much attention to the employee. But emotional intelligence now is pretty much a standard if you're going to be an effective leader, and that's just the ability to be able to perceive others. Now, what are emotions? Now, emotions come from the world of psychology, and we've been dealing with that fairly extensively over the past couple of weeks. Now, emotions are what we call a construct. Constructs are things that we can see evidence of or we can approximate, but how do you measure emotion? What can you tangibly see when it comes to emotions? Can you measure it? Can you feel it? Can you hold it? Emotions are feelings, but they're very subjective. There is no standard for emotion. Neither is there a standard for happiness or depression or whatever. So when we get into terms like these, you have people giving their best guess at what they're talking about. But leaders with a high emotional intelligence are more effective. Yeah, they're more in tune and in touch with the worker. And leaders should understand the range of emotions people have and how emotions manifest themselves. So having that sensitivity and having that awareness that people are emotionally and feeling oriented many times, that will help you a great deal when you're trying to lead people. Some people, you just tell them what to do and they'll do it. Other people, if you tell them what to do, sometimes they may take it the wrong way and just crumble. Some people may be going through traumatic events and so forth. So being able to discern all of that is highly important in business today. Now you have an emotional wheel here that just is really self-explanatory. You have the positive emotions, which are enjoyment and pride and love and relief. Negative would be disgust, envy, sadness, guilt, fear, anger, and they go round and round and round. At any given time, you can display any of these, any one of them, or maybe a couple of them at the same time. But these are just a representation of some of the emotions that people go through, and to understand it and to recognize it will help you out. Now, apparently, there's value in emotional intelligence. Look at the earning power of people who have it. The most expressive people, they make pretty well. The least expressive, not so much. The best at reading emotions are doing pretty well. Worst at reading emotions, not so well. I know as a pastor, looking at and being able to assess people and their emotional states and so forth is very important. There's people who, I can talk to when I'm counseling. I can be direct, just like in leadership. You can be direct and they can appreciate it and handle it. Others, they'll fall apart. So just having that emotional intelligence and that sensitivity to people can help you. And in this case, financially as well. Emotions are contagious. When you think about it, how many times have you been around a negative person and then you start being negative? Or you're around bright people and upbeat people and it makes you upbeat. I tell my class every once in a while, there are people, when they walk into the room, they light it up. And there are other people who light up a room when they leave. I hope you're the first kind. But they influence performance. It can influence their behaviors and so forth. So being in touch with your emotions to be that upbeat leader, that positive force and influence is critical today in business if you're going to be successful. A positive leadership and performance, and this is just a grid that goes from the worst toxic, where you are negative and everybody around you are negative, all the way towards the end, which is caring. At the first here, it's the effort that goes toward emotional survival. You see the amount of employee effort as opposed to caring, which effort that goes toward work and so forth. So you can create any of these climates here as a leader. And the components of emotional intelligence, well, you have self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and you have relational management. So these are the four dimensions, and then you have the behaviors and the awareness that go along with it as well. So it's, again, just a fairly straightforward grid that you can take a look at and just go through those elements and we'll move on. Now, fear in organizations. Now, I have known people who lead out of fear. The military leads out of fear sometimes. You don't want to mess up. You don't want to make mistakes and so forth because you know the hammer's about to fall on you and so forth. And some employers and some leaders lead that way. They're not encouragers. They threaten more than they do build people up, and no one really wants to work like that. Because really it not only does it create a toxic environment, but it creates avoidance behavior. That means you're going to really just do what you're told to do. You're going to behave in a way to avoid consequences instead of trying to be innovative and creative and be a productive influence in that organization. You're just going to act to avoid penalties and consequences and try to stay out of trouble. Just keep your nose clean. So fear in organizations, and I'll be honest with you, most of the people who are controlling like that, who lead out of fear, are fearful themselves. They're really not confident in their abilities or their knowledge, so their domineering position and attitude and the way that they treat people is really a mask or a disguise to cover up their feelings of inadequacy and so forth. But fear in organizations, really it goes back again to the early days of business when the autocratic method was there to intimidate and to really gain control of the worker. Fear in organizations still try to do the same thing, but you're not going to get a productive worker by doing that. Indicators of love versus fear in organizations. Well, fear-driven, you have excessive control. You have aloofness and distance. You're not connected to the people. You're not communicating with them. Caution and secrecy. You do things in the dark and leave the workers out of it. So that's really again, you're creating a toxic work environment. Love, you have interpersonal connections. You have diverse viewpoints, and you treasure those, expecting others to do great things. You have that regard for them and so forth. These are the things that will bring out the best in people. And again, the best example of that, the best model of that is Jesus Christ. He exemplified all of that, and he gave himself to his apostles, to the disciples. He poured his life into them. And that's what we're to do. We're to pour our lives in the ones that we are given stewardship over. Now, what about you at church? How many have you looked forward to, or how many of you have you sought out to try to develop and mentor? How many are seeing that type of leadership in you today? Churches need it, businesses need it. So I would encourage you to take a look at the love-driven indicators and try to exemplify some of those. If you're not in leadership, you can learn from leaders like that, and hopefully when you get to that point, you can emulate the same characteristics that they do. Bringing love to work. Again, this is pretty straightforward stuff. You're not going to have really people come up to you and do all the things that you're wanting them to do without being there to bringing love to work. That's binding people for a shared purpose through positive forces. It's going to attract people to take risks, and it should be translated to action. So what we see here is just really a transformational process where you are bringing people who are diverse, who come from different backgrounds, different motivations, different attitudes, emotions, and so forth, and you are attracting them. You are developing them. You are pouring yourself into them, as we said earlier, and that's translated to action. You see the slides, you've read the textbook, but we need to translate all of that stuff into really putting it out there to grow our people, not only in their KSAOs, but also in their emotional stability. And these are the practical aspects about caring for others. I'll let you guys take a look at that. There's many and diverse, and there's more to it than just that. Why followers respond to love? Well, again, it's motivated. If you're fear-based, you just don't want to lose your job. That's why you work. That's why you're motivated. Love-based motivation, motivation based on feeling valued in the job. You know, back in the days of Moses, the Hebrews worked. They worked hard. But it wasn't because they loved their job or they loved what they were doing or that they felt respected or valued. They lived in fear over Pharaoh. Now, Pharaoh was able to get work out of them, but look at how arduous that work was. Look at how he was regarded as harsh and cruel and so forth. You know, you're going to leave behind a legacy. You're going to leave behind a legacy that's either going to look favorably on how you treated others or unfavorably as you were taking advantage of others or not regarding people and not, just having that Christ-like attitude of servant leadership. And then you have love-based. Look at what Christ did again. He made his disciples feel valued. He took the worst and the lowest, and look at what he did. He changed the world. Now, if Jesus can do that with 12 people, think about what you can do in your church or in your organization with the resources and the people and the skills that you've been given here. And why followers respond to love? Well, it meets unspoken employee needs. They want to be heard and understood. They want to be able to voice, and even though you disagree, doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong. You acknowledge the greatness within them. You remember to look for the loving intentions and tell them the truth with compassion and so forth. You don't have to be a pushover to love them. You can be demanding. You can be direct. You can be straightforward. But you can do that in love, and they will respond to that, and that's what I've found over the years. They respond to that a lot more than they ever will anything else. You know, as we close out this chapter, I was reluctantly placed into a youth minister position at my current church. Now, I'm currently the senior pastor. But as soon as I became the associate pastor there, we lost our youth director. So we had about 15, 20 teenagers who absolutely loved the last youth director. There was some kind of rift between him and somebody else. I don't know what all the ins and outs were because we had just gotten there. But yeah, I told him, I said, I'll do it, but I really don't want to because I don't think I'm going to be very good at this. And, the pastor asked me, he said, well, why do you feel that way? I said, well, I'm military, and I'm strict, I'm disciplined, and I'm afraid they may all leave the church if I take over. I'll have them doing push-ups and doing this, that, and the other. And, but I said, I'll try it. And my wife and I got back there, and the one thing that I communicated right from the very beginning is my feelings toward them. I told them, you're not people to be looked over. And I know a lot of times churches will look over youth. So I let them know I appreciated them and I respected them. And then I set the ground rules. You respect me, I'll respect you, and we can, work together. And even though there were times when I had to get on to some of them, whenever I got on to them afterwards, I always let them know, hey, I love you and I'm here. And would you believe that youth group doubled in less than 6 months? I mean, we had so many kids in the back. We were having to get people to come on Wednesday nights, adults, just to help us chaperone them all. You can be straightforward. You can be who you are. As long as they know, whoever it is, as long as they know where your heart is, that you care, that you're there for them, and they're not just a tool or a resource or something that you can use, then they're going to respond to you favorably. And that's what we want to have. We want people to follow us, not because they have to, because they want to. You know, I heard a saying a long time ago that stuck with me. You know, they may follow you because of your title or your position and so forth. They may follow you as an executive, but they won't respect you as a person unless you earn it. So there's some things that are given. Titles are given, and they come and go. But once you've earned the respect of people and the love of people by showing that yourself to them, that's what you have, something that's going to last and be enduring. Well, God bless you. Have a good rest of the week, and we'll begin next week in chapter 6. Well, today you got a chance to see how people lead out of fear and love, and how emotions play a part in the workers' lives and in your lives as a leader and manager. I hope you followed the model of love. That's how Jesus led, and it's the best model that we have on earth to go by. But there are people who, because of whatever reason, they lead out of fear. My personal belief is that they're fearful themselves. They're not confident in their abilities or their really just ability to not only know the job, but be able to handle people and treat them with respect and fairness. They might have been the product of that themselves. I know a lot of times, just like in families, bad habits have a way of perpetuating itself. But nevertheless, you've probably worked for both kinds. What was that experience like? Those who lead out of love will garner the respect and the loyalty of those who follow. They can get things done, not because they have to, but because they want to. Those who lead out of fear can still get the job done. But these people don't last very long because they don't have the loyalty and the respect of the people, because they don't feel that the leader respects them. So what we see here is a reciprocal relationship where if we give respect and honor, then it's going to be returned to us. Now, it doesn't work that way all the time with everybody, but I can promise you, if you practice love in your leadership style, it's going to come back to you and reap many returns and many rewards, far more than leading in fear. Well, that's all we have for this week. God bless you. Have a good weekend, and we'll come back next time with chapter 6.